It's 5 matches over the course of 15 days for Bayern Munich. And if that's the case, chances are I'm seeing these guys maybe 5 times over the course of 15 days or so. Jeff Blair, Peter Galindo, and Dan Riccio. And it wasn't easy, Jeff, but Bayern Munich has moved on to the German Cup after knocking off Eintracht Frankfurt in the semifinal. Is this just a continuation of what's been just a phenomenal season despite the pause?
Yeah, and I thought from Bayern's point of view, people 2-1, I'm sure Bayern fans expected more, but I looked at how they played. I looked at the fact that Hansi Flick was able to use Thiago. He got Lucas Hernandez in the game. I thought he made some really smart substitutions, and I think given this run of fixtures, given the fact they're not going to have Muller and Lewandowski for this weekend's match against Borussia Mönchengladbach, I think one of the things that may have happened there is Hansi Flick's going to come away knowing that he's got some of his bench players a little bit of playing time. And, I think looking ahead to the Champions League, if they go to a tournament format for the Champions League as they're talking, I don't think it's a bad thing for Bayern if they get pressed a couple of times and have to see what these guys can do.
Yeah, and I thought it was especially interesting from a Canadian perspective that Alphonso Davies saw time further forward. Lucas Hernandez got subbed into the match a little bit later on, and it pushed Alphonso Davies up to a forward position, which we were likely to see him more with the Vancouver Whitecaps when he played in MLS. And looking ahead at this weekend, that's probably one of the things I'm looking for against Gladbach is does Lucas Hernandez start at left back and potentially Alphonso Davies in a forward position, which would be a lot of fun for us to see.
Yeah, Bayern has an embarrassment of riches these days. They have selection headaches, which, we haven't seen over the last couple of years, but now they're kind of returning back to that dominant form. It is a bit disappointing, I guess, from the Gladbach perspective that Alassane Plea is suspended, because I think if he wasn't, then we would have seen a really, really intriguing matchup with a fully fit Gladbach, fully available Gladbach against a maybe somewhat weakened Bayern.
Well, if there's one league or one country that I thought would not have soccer return just because how devastating COVID-19 was for them from the start and literally to the finish. I know things are much better in Italy now, Dan, but what do you make of the return to Serie A and the Coppa Italia with the four clubs that are in the semifinals, Inter and Napoli, as well as Juve versus AC Milan. Now, AC Milan and Juve tied at 1 after the first leg. Napoli leads after leg 1-0. What do you make of the semifinals and just the return of soccer to Italy?
Yeah, it is surprising. And given the way that the country has gone, it really is something that is surprising to this point. But the way that this league is built, it's been built around Juventus, very similar to FC Bayern, right? They are the dominant squad. They've even beaten Bayern by 1 year. They're on going on for a 9th straight title compared to Bayern's 8th. But this matchup against AC Milan, I'm really curious because Juventus, as much as they are still top of the league and they have still shown that they are the class of Italy, they haven't really reached a high peak at any point this year. So especially after this pause with some players coming back, they want to use Paulo Dybala and Cristiano Ronaldo at the same time. Can that work? Can they coexist and really reach that peak form as they try to lock down that 9th straight title, starting with this Coppa Italia match?
I'm fascinated to see how Napoli comes out of the gate, only because I'm trying to imagine Rino Gattuso in an enclosed stadium in a big match, and I'm really hoping we get to see some fireworks from him. To me, Serie A is fascinating, not just because of the fact that there seems to be a little bit of uncertainty surrounding what would happen, for example, if a player tested positive for COVID and things of that nature. But I look at some of the coaches in Serie A and some of the good teams. Like, I looked at Antonio Conte, and his trademark has always been a lot of running. There's no team in Serie A that has covered as much ground as his team has. There's no team in Serie A that has used fewer subs than his has. So I'm going to be fascinated to see in particular how the coaching shakes out here. And I think it's going to come down to who can adapt the quickest. And I do think there's going to have to be some adapting in Serie. I think we may. It just fascinates me, maybe more than any other league out there right now.
Yeah, further to that, Jeff, Inter was in a very bad run of form entering the pause. And you could kind of see the players were starting to get tired. Those new arrivals from January hadn't really gelled yet. Antonio Conte said as much. And obviously with players injured like Nicolo Barella earlier in the season, now that they've had a few months to regain fitness, might that actually be an advantage? But at the same time, if you run these players into the ground too quickly after so much time off, then they run an even bigger risk of injury.
Yeah.
Well, La Liga is back. Real Madrid and Barcelona, 56 points for Real Madrid, Barcelona at 58. Barcelona hasn't played since March 18th when La Liga decided to, they had to take a break as well. Peter, it's a two-club chase. Will the pause make any difference on how these two squads return?
Potentially. It's such a tight race, but one would think, it's because both teams have been in such great form. They've kind of been tripping over each other a lot, especially in 2020, which hasn't really helped them. I still think that the advantage still lies with Barcelona a little bit, just because they have that little fellow on their team, Lionel Messi. He's always a game changer, of course. But even further below in the table, we have a massive race for the Champions League. Atletico Madrid, famous out on the top four. That could have huge ramifications on them financially. But then you have clubs like Real Sociedad, who've been playing some of the best football in Spain this season, who probably deserve to get into the Champions League. And it would be great to see them get in there with those young players, especially Martin Odegaard and Alexander Isak doing so well. Really that entire top six, just like we're seeing in the Bundesliga, since the restart, is very, very tight, and it should make for some entertaining viewing.
Yeah, I'm really excited frankly to see how Real comes out. We know that Eden Hazard is healthy again. He's had an awful year for Real, and Gareth Bale, according to reports out of Spain, has flown through all the fitness tests. He is, in terms of all the the analytics that they've used to come back from the break, he's just nailed everything. He's far and away the most in shape player in Real, all that good stuff. And of course, the good thing for him is, again, in an enclosed stadium, people aren't going to be booing him. This might be the first time Gareth Bale's been able to enjoy his soccer in a long time.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the other storylines is a lot of failed major signings getting a chance to put a better feel on their opening seasons with new clubs. Antoine Griezmann has not been all that great with Barcelona. He's got 8 goals on the year. That's probably below expectation for many people. Of course, Eden Hazard, just the 1 league goal this year, as Jeff mentioned. And even over at Atletico Madrid, they've only scored 31 goals on the entire year. And Joao Felix, I know he's very young and he's like the next Cristiano Ronaldo, but he's got to do better. And they have to rely on him a little bit more to get some of that offense if they are going to end up in a top 4. But I'm really curious. And I think Barcelona's light squad, they're very short. They rely on a small squad in comparison to others with so many fixtures topped up on top of each other. I think it gives Real Madrid a bit of an advantage, especially with so many fixtures coming up so quick.
Well, it's been great talking about the Bundesliga, but I got to admit, it's nice to have soccer coming back elsewhere around the world. And something's right when Ronaldo and Messi are back on the pitch in their respective leagues and countries. Jeff, Peter, Dan, thanks for the insight, and enjoy the soccer almost everywhere.
Ciao.
Ciao, Bella.
Ciao.